Here we go. And welcome back to Miniature Dragon Comic Review, coming to you live from Seattle, Washington. I'm here with Alex, no Woody, because he is in a place he can't charge his phone, I believe is what he said. But anyways, thank you, Alex, for, going through the hassle of coming out and joining us.
I know. Such a amazing thing to do.
Right? So I got news for everybody is we're going to have to start off with I don't know the history because I was almost sure Woody was going to make it today. And I was wrong. But anyways, a couple weeks here, actually in 2 weeks, this June 15th, we'll be at SummerCon 228 or booth number 228. Come on down and say hi. I'll be there with a couple of wands. It's my cold release, so you guys can be the first people to actually see and check them out besides the few people who have bought them so far. Besides that, it's a long way out to SummerCon. What else do you guys? You guys have Cornucopia coming up, right?
That is correct. July. And I'll gotta get back to you on the dates.
I'm telling you, you guys, we practice this way ahead of time, so we know what's going on.
Professional.
I'm professional. My rear. We're going to be doing high level. I don't know. Do you know anything about this? Well, first off, what's DC Vertigo?
Vertigo is a sub-company within DC. So you had initially a mature content that was done by Vertigo. So DC would be your Superman, Batman, kid teenager kind of comic book. And then Vertigo just had more mature themes.
Okay, I think I get it. So DC did they start Vertigo so that they would have a separation between the two?
I believe so. To be honest, don't know its history.
So they have like a totally different Twitter channel, the whole 9 yards. So I thought it was kind of weird. I didn't know exactly how to put that out there. So we did. What did we do last weekend? Oh, Savage Avengers. So we did Marvel. We're running into a DC. I was just making a comment here about how we've moved away from Image or even some indie stuff, and we're right back into the mainstream stuff. Why? Do you know why you picked high level? Usually we do stuff when Woody asks us to do things. It's usually because there's a movie or something coming out. Do you know anything about that?
Nothing that he made mention of. His main focus has been going down to Portland, having a fun time, and he really didn't talk about this comic.
Way to leave us hanging, Woody. Just way to leave us hanging.
With news and all.
Right, everything. Just enough rope.
Hey, we can run with scissors tonight.
I threatened to on Twitch already, so we'll see what happens. So a little bit about high level that I know that I can tell you is, so when you usually see Alex and myself, usually you're like, oh, we're going to do something like gaming wise that has to do with tabletop or some kind of gaming. And let me tell you, when Woody put this out there, I got a little excited because high level sounded like a game thing to me. I can tell you, though, reading it, it's not, but it's not disappointing. It was that initial disappointment of, oh, this isn't a game.
or inspired like some of the other content that we've reviewed.
Sure. And I thought Woody was going to be here, so I didn't look for mistakes or anything in the writing and stuff like that. But why don't you jump into it? I'll do a little research, see if I can find out where this comic came from and what his inspiration was. And then why don't you give us your 3 on this one?
As the Matrix goes for myself, I didn't see anything that was blaringly obvious with the typography. Actually, the word bubbles were interesting. If I recall right, they didn't have the black outline around them. And I thought that was an interesting style choice. But besides that, nothing totally off-kilter, weird, or totally distracting. No blatant misspellings that my dyslexia could easily go like, yep, there we go. And as story goes, I definitely love this. This felt like that sci-fi kind of feel that it's that next Tuesday kind of idea. And that is a sci-fi term basically saying that this is very possible. This is not science fantasy like Star Wars. It has more of a capability of existing within our world. So the characters felt like they were really real. Their problems, their struggles, what was going on, even the mystery of like one of the characters in there that had something that seemed potentially kind of supernatural could actually be explained by science. Potentially. I mean, we only reviewed the first graphic novel, but at the same time, it wasn't like hokey religions, lightsabers, and whatever the quote comes from. And as art-wise, I enjoyed this. I thought this was a really beautiful style. Character design was fantastic. The world element had great things going on. It had enough busyness without being distracting, but at the same time, it wasn't so minimalist that I just felt like it was at the right level. Now, Doc, should I keep on yammering away, or did you find...
I didn't find anything. I was just waiting for you to finish.
Okay. I am definitely curious to hear what your thoughts are on this.
So when I first started reading this, like I said, I thought it was going to be a game thing because it's called High Level right off the bat. And it turns out that High Level is just a providence in this world that somebody made up. There's a lot of aspects about this comic that I loved. And I was looking up because as you were talking, you said something about no black lines. There wasn't. They did an all white, no black line. It looked like in some of the pictures that there was like a blue hue around it when there's blue in the background, but nothing that defines into the bubble itself. I like in a few of these, and you'll see them come up because I thought it was interesting if you're watching this on Twitch, the pictures that I got going. Some of the bubbles were like, so you know how when like there's a long conversation, they go back and forth, they do that back and forth bubble. So it was a really long tail of a bubble on some of these, and then just a couple of words right on top. I thought that was super interesting. It was a weird choice because I don't see that too often. This really feels like, as I get into it, it felt a lot like the TV show Defiance. I had to look it up. That's a lot of what I was looking up when I couldn't find the history. It's an old TV show. Aliens fought. They were fighting over the world. And then Defiance was the town St. Louis that ended up... You know,
Sci-Fi Channel?
Yeah. I don't know whatever happened to that show. I enjoyed it. It just stopped one day. But anyway, I think so. It was like 2 or 3 seasons. But this feels a lot like Defiance. It feels like cyberpunk, but not cyberpunk for the sake of cyberpunk. This isn't, oh, what would the Wild West have been if everybody had steam engine Iron Man costumes, whatever. This is like, there's something catastrophic that happened. They don't talk about it, but there's something that happened. And the world seems to be in this like post-apocalyptic thing. And it's not full on cyberpunk. It's not like robot. Everybody's got a robotic arm or robotic eye, or there's a few people with them, but it doesn't like totally have that feel in it, which I enjoy. A little bit of cyberpunk into a sci-fi thing really makes it feel science fiction, where too much cyberpunk makes it feel forced. This didn't feel forced. I love the main protagonist in this. I love the storyline so far. You don't know who the bad guy is, and we're in episode 2. That's my favorite part. You really don't know who's right and wrong here. That's one of the things. And I love how the story did that, where they were giving different points of view about the same thing. And it was like, oh, it could be this, or it could be this, or they could both be right, and they just have a different understanding of it, which is actually what I really felt was going on. But it starts off with this lady who's driving a honey wagon around cleaning out poopers. And I'll tell you right off the bat, like that made me laugh and kept me interested, because she could have done anything. It could have been like Rey in Star Wars, where she's scavenging for stuff. It could have been, she's going out to fight things, because the way she was dressed, it would not put her past being like some kind of, I'm going to be one badass person that's going to go out and fight all these people. I love that she's more down to earth, realistic. In that she's not superhuman strength, she's not super spy, kick your butt, a woman. I like those kind of comic books, but I'm really happy they didn't go with it. She's just really clever. She's really smart, and it's not Batman smart. I don't think she has a contingency plan for everybody, and nobody's ever going to beat her. But she's very interesting. She has a robot that doesn't speak well, but she can translate for it. She makes little marionette puppets, which it was really weird. I'm sure it'll come into the story somewhere, but it was just like kind of interesting that was her thing. You know what I mean? It's like it gave a different aspect to it. It almost seemed like it was nothing except for she likes to make things, and in this case, it's marionettes. I think you know what I'm talking about in the comic and the story, and I'm talking a lot about the story now because the story was really cool. The rest of it did not disappoint me. The art in this is awesome. I love the colors that are used in this, to be honest with you. And that's the reason I got a feeling it's post-apocalyptic, because the sky has some weird colors that it becomes. This isn't blue and black of the sky, or like a red hue coming off the sun. When the sky is pink, the whole thing is pink. It's very interesting to me, and I think it's on purpose. I do. I was looking at, when I was reading this comic, it felt like it wasn't, it didn't feel like it was just color choices for the background. Like, it feels like there's more to this. And I love that. I love stories that keep me going with this. I love art that keeps me going. I love characters that are super interesting. And you meet people very shortly, but you feel like you understand their character. Jasper is one of them. Jasper is a character who has a real short run in the two comics that we were reading. He was in and out, but I remembered his name, and that's not like me. That's all I'm saying. This comic book has a lot of things going good for it. I love the art, and this is one of the few comic books I can say that I like the art in the comic more than I like the cover. I'm usually the other way around, and I think it's because sometimes people take a longer time to do the cover, or they'll get a totally different artist to do the cover while the other person's doing the art. I did like the covers here, but once I opened up the comic and started reading, I love the art inside it more. I feel like they spent a lot of time and detail on what they were doing. And when you first start reading, you're totally lost, because it's totally like a fantasy kingdom with a fantasy king that in the first couple of pages, and then out of the blue, this guy comes out of nowhere and goes, I can correct all your problems. I actually forgot about that. That's right off the bat. That's the first couple of pages.
Right.
And they don't explain it. It's like out of nowhere. And then you lose it. And like Alex said, he forgot because you go through 2 full comics and they don't come back to it. And I'm not mad about that. I know it's a plot point, but it's because they're explaining things like any new comic does. You have to explain the features of what's going on. You have to explain what people do. I like this idea of having the high level is supposed to be the city where people can go and they can ascend, and then you can work towards ascension, and it feels like you're working towards something. One of the other characters says that you're a slave living in a box until you die, and that nobody ever really ascends, and nobody knows what happens because you don't see them after they ascend. So it's got to be some kind of slavery thing. I like that. They kind of explain like it could be a million different things you don't know. It's the story itself is super interesting, and it really draws you in. And I think that's a big thing for comic books. And I think it's something a lot of comic books don't have today. They don't have that storyline. They just want to explain everything. So either you get a lot of stuff up front or you get a lot of stuff at the end. And this book feels like it's kind of spreading it out. I don't know how many issues it's supposed to go. It's supposed to be long running, if it's a 10-issue thing, an 8-issue thing, whatever. But I feel like even if it's 8 issues, they'll end it. If they keep writing the way they are, they'll end it the same way they're writing it, and it'll just leave you not knowing what's happening, which to me would be phenomenal. I would love just to have a comic book just cut off out of nowhere that you're super interested in and just not have an ending. Like I said, the art is really cool in this, by the way. Inside the book, the covers are cool. I'm not knocking the covers. They're just not as impressive as the art inside the books themselves. And this isn't like watercolor or anything else that's impressed me in the past. This is regular drawing ink, pencil ink art. But the detail, I feel like they paid attention to a lot of things more than normal. And it might just easily be because, mainstream comic books have a really quick turnaround. So they have to get them out really fast. So they really, you can pay attention to details, but you can't pay attention to every details. It's that 1 minute, 5 minute, 10-minute drawing thing that I've seen so many times. And I feel like they're more in the 5-minute area, where this feels like it was in the 10-minute area. Like somebody took their time to make this happen. The lettering, I love the way the robot talked. I'm not sure about the choice of having the lettering the same. The bubble's different. The bubble has a little electronic jump to it, but the letters are the same font as the other people speaking, which I'm not sure what kind of a choice that is. I kind of like the different fonts, especially when you understand that people have accents and some people don't have accents. It's one of those attentions to detail that would have blew this off the map. The only exception to what I just said is when she's doing her internal monologue, there's a totally different black box thing. You think it's a narration to the story, but she actually gets caught in it one time and she's like, oh, sorry, just thinking out loud. I thought it was pretty cool. It's not narrative. She's not telling the story. You're literally just hearing her thoughts, which at first I was like, oh, here we go. Narrative story, which is good or bad depending on what you do. And then I love how they just they got me with it because they twisted it around to, oh, I'm just thinking out loud. Sorry about that. All around, this comic book, I think, has everything. And it's hard to find comic books like that, where it has a story, it has the art. Even the lettering, for most part, is very similar, but in a lot of parts, it's exceptional when it needs to be exceptional. There's one page where there's some purple boxes and there's some light blue boxes, and it's I think if I remember right, they're thinking about, oh, this thing in the past, and this was this person talking, this was this person talking. And like I said, it was exceptional when it needed to be exceptional. It was like everything else when it needed to be like everything else. This, like I said, the comic has a lot going for it, and I don't think that's any exception. Personally, I think that is part of the story, which makes this cool to me, anyway. So, off of what I said, did you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I was trying to be better than last time, and let you actually finish, even with the minor interruption that I did earlier. but it was mostly for clarification.
On the flip side, Woody's not here, so don't worry about what you.
Hello, Doc.
Love you.
Thinking about what you were saying about a story. Yes, I don't feel this is a black and white type of story. It's definitely like it could be very opinion driven. The character 13, she's our main antagonist or protagonist. Correct? My brain just.
Man, you got me thinking. One of them's protagonist, one's right. I think protagonist is the hero. I want to say that. I think that's right.
Sorry. I need to reboot my brain apparently. So she's been tasked with a job to take somebody to high level. And like you were making mention, this could be either for good or bad reasons. And so far we don't know. And that's what makes it interesting. That it isn't a very black and white kind of thing. And the motivations for individuals are, potentially self-serving or for the better good of individuals. And just thinking about like previous episodes that we've gone through, I do kind of wonder if Woody was here, if he would say like, oh, these are the villains, these are the heroes, because he is a very black and white kind of individual. I mean, I do enjoy working with him, but he does have kind of a very tunnel vision.
Well, see, I could see that, but that's because Woody thinks he can figure out the story before the story starts. I don't think it's a lot about him being black and white. I think he just has a grasp, because from the stories that he's called like that we didn't go further, but we go further because we get the comics and stuff. He hasn't been wrong per se. I think this one would have been hard for him to call. I honestly don't think he would have been like, oh, these are the bad guys, these are the good guys. Because this story is written in such a way you have no idea who's the bad or good guy, which I like. I'm sick and tired of the tropes. Anybody who's in a corporation or in a good spot for living is obviously the bad guy, where the poor person is obviously the super good guy because obviously he's the poor guy. Like, okay, I get it. It's a good story thing, but it's been told a million times. It's time to have something different. This is different. These people aren't poor. That's the best part about this. Like, some of them have a harder time making a living than others, obviously, in this. But they're not poor. They choose to live at this town. I think it's Oni or something like that. Own me. I don't remember. They choose to live in this town, and everybody's happy. And the people that you think would be from high level, they seem like, when in the story, they seem to be happy. Like, it's just two different places to be. The story makes you think like it's going to be corporate versus poor. You know what I mean? But so far, this story has not given me that idea. I love that everybody, like, she met somebody, Jasper, the character, is going to high level because he wants to leave the community and go to high level. And they have a little back and forth. And I love the way it ends because you don't see it too often, which is, you know what, Jasper, I love you. I hope I'm wrong. Good luck, man. Like, seriously, good luck. And I was like, wow, you do not see that. Not today. I'm on every social media thing for Doc's Wands, and if I wasn't, I would be off social media because it has made me so angry. People follow shaming people because they don't like somebody that they're following is a thing. Everybody like voicing their opinion. If you don't believe in their opinion, and it's weird. It's not like if I just keep to myself. Because like me, I own a business. I don't want to get into politics or anything I think could be politics. So people voice their opinion and I let it go. Whether I agree or I disagree, I don't want to get in the middle of it because it's going to affect my business. That's what I'm on there for. And then all of a sudden, I'm the enemy from both sides of the argument because I didn't take a side. And this was like the total opposite of that. It's like you can be on the other side and we can talk and we can go to the bar and have drinks and we can live in the same area and we'll talk and you know who I am and we'll be pleasant with each other, even if you don't agree with what I'm saying. I enjoy that. There's not enough of that in the world today. That is really all I wanted to say about that particular thing because I enjoyed it so much. It was one little panel inside of two comics that we read. So,
and I felt like it was very organic. It wasn't that kind of join the rebellion, fight the empire. The classic trope that you were kind of making mention of the hero's journey, and 13 is basically going forth and she's going to save things. But this feels a little bit more realistic, even though it is a post-apocalyptic world. Setting aside, it feels like people. It feels like these individuals interacting with each other. They have their different levels of opinions and actual facts. And that kind of fine level in the real world, we all have those levels of truth. Some of them being very true, some of them being very fanciful. But at the same time, 13 and Jasper were able to actually have a conversation. They didn't agree per se in like 13 was very opposed, where Jasper was very this is what I want to do. But that adult level of saying from 13 saying to her friend, go ahead and do this. I hope I'm actually wrong. And that is a wonderful thing of being an adult. And that's why I feel like once again, Vertigo is a much more mature title. And what they do for their comic books, their series, the way that they write is more for an adult audience.
I wish they did that particular thing in more comics, though. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like you treat a child with respect and given them the capabilities to be the future adult that they're going to be, and it gives them a positive experience. You treat them nothing more than just you're bothering me, kid. And I've seen some of the negatives from my own life and from others that I've been around.
So
that's just my opinion.
We got 2 minutes left. Why don't you give us your final thoughts?
So as final thoughts, I would almost say that I'd be willing to break my previous rule and give it a star rating, but I won't. But to be honest, I did enjoy this, and I feel like pick it up, make your own decision, and I would love to hear from you guys.
I feel like this comic had everything, and that's unusual today. And I'm not saying that there isn't comics that don't. I'm saying that it was very refreshing to have a comic that was, because we've been through a couple that, like I said, tropes. I don't like them. After a while, they're cool for a while, and when you go back to them, like, don't get me wrong, the classic stories are always classic. But sometimes you just want the bad guy to win, or you want to see Star Wars from the Emperor and Imperial point of view, because it was just one-sided. The story is told from one side, and you can't trust just one side. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm saying that you just can't trust one side of the story. The Imperial government was the rightful government at the time, and rebels were terrorists. But anyways, it's just, you can't trust it. It's just how it is. This comic, though, pick it up, give it a chance. Even if it's not your thing, I think you would find that it is a very impressive comic book. I really felt like it was. Check these guys out, even when they're not here, like Woody is not here. On miniaturedragon.com, they have a lot of stuff that is on there now. pouring out new stuff all the time, new, different. If you're looking for different comics, this is the place to go. They have classic comics. They have different comics. They have a world-building comic. They got a ton of stuff. Check me out at docswans.com. I got a lot of stuff and new stuff coming on. We'll see you on the 15th and the 16th at SummerCon.
One last plug I would like to do for myself. Sorry. So Q-Gen Comic Art on YouTube. I do animations and drawings. Definitely check it out. Have a good one.
Read more comics. Keep it nerdy and live your dreams.